I love a live stream, whether it's breaking news or following each round.
Alpine man, what have you done?
Every race so far this season I've done a pre and post race stream, but I've only been covering the sport on YouTube since the middle of 2019. There's a whole archive of races that never got the Tommo F1 treatment. Well, thanks to F1 TV now showing full race reruns through the ages, I had the idea of giving this a go. Cover a classic race as if it's today. So this is my F1 throwback to the iconic 2010 season finale at Abu Dhabi. Now obviously, I know what happened. In fact, I actually think I remember watching this race. I'd have been 17 at the time, so this was just before I went to uni and kind of fell away from the sport for a few years. But we're all going to try our best, you watching and me watching the race, to put ourselves in that moment. Once you've watched, let me know what you think. This is a new idea for the channel. It's always good to get your feedback, especially on these videos. And drop a like while you're at it as well, please. Cheers. Well. Hello everyone. Welcome to 2010. The Chilean miners, big up, saved David Cameron's Prime Minister as well, which isn't so good. But anyway, we're here. I'm just 17 years of age apparently. And we are talking all about this weekend's, remember, because we're in 2010, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the season finale, and what a season it has been. 4 potential drivers who can still win the title going into the final race. We'll get into more of that a little bit later. First of all, let's quickly recap on the last race. In Brazil, remember Nico Hülkenberg put it on pole in his Williams, which was an absolute madness. Unfortunately, he couldn't convert, so he still hasn't got a podium, but I'm sure he will one day. And it was the Red Bull boys, Seb P1, Vettel P2 and Fernando P3. Seb needed this to keep himself in with a shot of this championship for sure. He needed this win. A great drive, but still a lot to play for. But let's talk about it. Round 19, Abu Dhabi. Typically not the most exciting and enthralling track on the calendar, let's be honest. But considering the driver who's currently 3rd in the World Championship fight, well, he won here last year. Sebastian Vettel won in 2009 ahead of Marky Mark, ahead of JB. So that bodes pretty well for Seb this weekend because he's going to need a big result to give himself any chance of winning the championship and for other results to go his way. So we'll look at the standings at the minute after 18 of 19 rounds. Fernando Alonso sitting pretty, 8 points ahead of Mark Webber, which isn't insurmountable, but it's 15 ahead of Seb. So it's going to have to be a big point swing. And then Lewis 24 points back as well. So he's still got an outside chance. But again, it's 25 points for a race win. So Lewis is going to need to win the race and pretty much hope that Seb, Mark and Fernando all DNF basically. But stranger things have happened. Who else we got interested in here? So obviously JB 199, Felipe in the other Ferrari only 143. So considering Fernando's winning the championship at the minute, his Ferrari teammate hasn't been able to match that pace at all. You know, Rosberg in his Mercedes, Kubica in the Renault, Schumacher in the Mercedes as well, and then Barrichello's in the Williams, isn't he? Yeah, of course he's in the Williams. I definitely didn't forget because obviously this is 2010 and obviously I've been watching every race this year. My boy Kobayashi is the man bringing in the points at Sauber. Like, you know I love him. You know I love Kamui. And you look where Pedro De La Rosa and Nick Heidfeld, who have both been his teammates for part of this season, they're miles off, mate. Kamui is top tier. Anyway, back to the forecourt. 4 title contenders going into the final race. 4 different people from 3 different teams as well who could potentially win this World Drivers' Championship is mad. That's so unusually competitive, especially considering how much of a job Braun did on everyone last year. I do hope now we're starting the 2010s, this sport will be as competitive throughout until, 2021. But I doubt we'll ever see the title come down to, 2 drivers on the same points. I mean, that's ridiculous. So they're the drivers to keep an eye on. As for qualifying, which has already happened, I can't do a qualifying watch along because they don't have the Grand Prix on the archive on F1 TV, so I don't know how to watch it. But we do have the results from qualifying. And I said he needed to put it out of the bag to have a chance, where he's 15 points behind Fernando, and Seb's put it P1, ahead of Lewis, ahead of Fernando. Webber's down in P5. So right now, you got to say this is looking pretty good for Fernando. There needs to be a 16-point swing for Seb to take the title from Fernando. And again, it's 25 for a win, 18 for P2, 15 for P3. So if Fernando can hold position here, he's won the title. It's nice seeing Fernando and Mark, who are 1 and 2 in the championship at the minute, being 3rd and 5th for this race. And Seb's got an opportunity here for sure. But he's still going to have to rely on things going wrong for Fernando. So I mean, maybe Mark can help him out, but then why would Mark do that? Because Mark's ahead of Seb. That's the difficulty they've got at Red Bull at the moment. Because this is uncharted territory for Red Bull. They've never won a World Drivers' Championship before. The contenders are P1, RP2, RP3 and RP5. Let's get it. Here we are, everyone. It's mad, so watching the coverage, just said 2010 was the longest season ever in F1, and it's 19 races. That's 3 fewer than we've got this year. It'll probably be like 23, maybe even 24 next year. There he is, Fernando Alonso, the man who's leading the title at this stage. Mark Webber's starting down in P5. Still second in the Drivers' Championship. I do miss Mark's presence. He was good crack in terms of like personality-wise, you know. Seb looking prepped and ready to go. Who knows? Maybe this could be sort of something special for Sebastian Vettel. I don't know, because we're in 2010. Lewis repping the yellow. That was a great helmet, that was. I like Lewis's neon now, but the yellow for me was top tier. I mean, obviously in the future, in 12 years, Lewis will have a neon helmet because it's 2010, remember. Again, 2010, you couldn't just chop and change your helmet designs. They were much more strict. There was still 7 more years of Bernie reign. Interesting that Brundle's talking in the pre-race about Kubica starting on hards in his Renault, potentially being a thorn in the side of Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari. Maybe it'll be Kubica. Maybe it'll be a different Renault. Oh yeah, Karun Chandok raced in 2010, didn't he? Big up Karun. Got a lot of time for Karun. I really like him. Oh God, yeah, and this was Bridgestone's last race in F1 as well before Pirelli took over. So much has changed in the sport between now and then. Here we go. Pulling up on the start grid. There's old Charlie Whiting, rest in peace. Waiting to click go. 4, 5 lights out. Oh, that stayed red for quite a bit. Yeah, Sebi, good start. Oh, God. Lewis left his nose in there, but didn't quite fully commit. He wasn't far enough alongside. Did right to get out of it. Worldy start from Jenson Button up to P3 from P4. So he jumped Fernando. And then here we go. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, here we go. Schumacher spins. Oh, that's such a nasty shunt, man. No halo. Halo is just a figment of our imaginations right now. The way Liuzzi just misses Michael's head. And here we go, this safety car, pit stop, so Petrov's come in. So you got to wonder if Petrov, if he plays a role in this race, whether that early safety car makes a difference. So Nico tries to go around the outside of Michael. He's entitled to space. It doesn't even look like that's contact to me between Nico and Michael. Maybe there's a different camera angle. Liuzzi can't possibly see him because there's so many cars in front and clatters him. Such a slow speed corner. You got no downforce pushing the car into the track. It doesn't take much. That must have been scary from Michael's point of view as well, to see that Force India bearing down on you last minute and head just past your head. So we've got 22 cars in the race now with 2 out. Remember, this is the old 12 team, 24 car grid era. Bring it back, Porsche. Bring it back, Audi. Bring it back, Andretti. Come on. Yeah, Jensen just got a better start than Fernando at the end of the day. Just got more traction down. Boom, straight past. Fernando couldn't cover him off anywhere near early enough. Should I order a pizza? If I order a pizza right now, will that count as... Can I expense that? Because I'm making a video and it's part of the content. I think I can. Although, do I fancy a Pizza Hut? Probably not. Hello, Kenny. Will you say hello to the camera, Kenny? Kenny, look, who's that? Who's that on there? Kenny's been on a stream before, actually. Throwback, so... Recognise Kenny, well done. So yeah, none of the leading pack have chosen to pit on this safety car. 4 of 55 laps done now. Oh yeah, Lewis did definitely lock a front left as well on the way into turn 1. So how differently that could have ended. If Lewis locks a bit more and Vettel turns in a little bit earlier, there could be contact. Them two could have been out of that race easily. Safety car in this lap at Abu Dhabi. Not flashbacks, flash forwards. Here we go. Safety car, restart. Seb Vettel leading the way with Lewis Hamilton right behind him. Tell you what, Hamilton's like proper harrying Vettel. I think he thought Vettel was going to go and didn't. He almost did what Max was doing at Abu Dhabi 2021. But then Seb used that opportunity for sure, where Lewis had to get out of it. And now Seb has opened up a little bit of a gap here. So I wonder how much of that was Seb playing Lewis or Lewis just making a bit of a mistake there. If Webber finishes ahead of Alonso, then Alonso gets fewer points. So then Seb's more likely to... There's loads of different ways this turns out. Also, Brundle's just said that he thinks if Webber is behind Vettel, Vettel will get out of the way for him. Really? I guess what he means by that is if Fernando's going to win it, then Seb would let Mark through to win it instead. But if Seb's going to win it, then obviously he's not letting anyone through. Vettel punting in a fastest lap early doors as well, 46.5. So 8 laps in, Webber's over 6 seconds behind Seb now. Seb's really checking out at the front here. That's all Seb can do. You know, Seb knows that it's partially in his hands, but not entirely in his own hands. So, you know, another fastest lap. Oh, bloody hell, Mark. You know the wall where Latifi binned it in Abu Dhabi? He shaves it. Oh, no, he does actually properly hit it, actually. Not enough to damage the car seemingly, but there was a big spark, which... Oh, Mark, man, come on. In terms of race pace, Seb has got this... Mark's got, you know, cars in front of him, but he's not close enough to Alonso to get too much turbulent there. I don't think it doesn't look like that way anyway. I mean, Massa's much closer to Webber than Webber is to Alonso right now. Tell you what, lap 11, Lewis is keeping Seb honest here. Like, he's just over a second off. Webber complaining about rear tyres. Yeah, I mean, he's clearly not got the pace. Massa behind him and Alonso ahead of him are clearly quicker. No, Lewis is doing a fantastic job in like not letting Seb check out here at all. Here we go, Red Bull pit stop. Looks like that's probably going to be Webber, surely, because Webber's the one who's complaining about his tyres. Yep, here we go. Webber's coming in, not happy. So how's this going to pan out for him? Mark coming out the pits, almost drops it, drifts it out. I love the pit exit at Abu Dhabi. It's very interesting. It goes under the track, you know. Now it's come out P16 now, so he's behind Al-Jaswari, behind Kubica. That's the problem for Mark, because he couldn't make them tyres last. He's now stuck in traffic. So as it stands right now, Fernando's winning the championship by 2 points. Again, as long as Fernando can stick where he is, P4, he's fine. And here we are, Ferrari lap 12 in the pit lane. Is a Ferrari going to come into the pits, and who's it going to be? Because obviously they've got Massa, who's not fighting for a championship here. So you'd think maybe they can use Massa as a kind of test, I guess, to see. It depends how happy Fernando is with his tyres at the end of the day, doesn't it? Oh, no, Ferrari have decided against it. Lap 13 now, they've decided to go back into the pit. Again, if you're not going to pit during that safety car, which none of the lead runners did, you have to kind of take these tyres quite far into the race, don't you? Mark Webber stuck behind a baby Red Bull at the minute of Jaime Al-Jaswari. Oh, they're back out now. Ferrari can't make their minds up. In, out, shake it all about. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, so Alonso's staying out, so it must be Massa coming in. At 14 now. The focus for Ferrari is Webber to make sure that because if Webber finishes ahead of Alonso, that changes everything. Mark looked like he was going for the move on Al-Jaswari, but isn't. I'm surprised, like, Al-Jaswari's not been told to get out of the way. I'm not going to lie. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Al-Jaswari's definitely got out of the way now. Oh, and Mark locks a wheel as well, as he makes the move. Not ideal. Here we go, lap 15. Ferrari mechanics are in the pit lane, which means Fernando Alonso is about to come in. He's kept that gap to Jensen pretty solid, pretty comfortable. Not too close behind him to destroy his tyres in the dirty air. But not too... Oh, my God. Okay. Jesus Christ, Fernando. That wall that bit Latifi, that wall that almost bit Webber here. Fernando does a proper slide. He's going to come out ahead of Marky Mark, but behind Vitaly Petrov. Maybe that time stuck behind Al-Jaswari actually cost Webber track position there. Because he did spend a while behind him before he did let him through eventually. Oof, Jesus Christ, that was sketchy. Lap 17. So there's a few drivers who still haven't stopped yet. So Barrichello, P4, Kobayashi, P5 at the minute. But they will be coming in. So expect this to change. Still haven't seen Seb or Lewis pit yet, though. So there is time for things to change. Barrichello in the pits. That means Kamui Kobayashi's P4. Come on, Kamui. Lap 19 of 55. There's a long way to go. I've got to be honest. So far, this race has been pretty stale. Like, in terms of wheel-to-wheel scrapping, I think we've got it good. We've got it good in 2022. The cars just can't follow. Even though there's 4 drivers potentially going to win the championship after this race, it's not a very scrappy, interesting race so far, I'll be honest. Like, it's all about tyre strategy. Here we go. Vitaly Petrov, Fernando Alonso, closing in on Vitaly over the last few laps by about half a second per lap on average, right on the back of the Renault. He's got 35 laps. Surely that's enough laps to get past Vitaly Petrov. Surely. But yeah, maybe it was a mistake pitting Webber so early because, you know, Vettel's made these tyres last a long time. And we all know about tyres, you know, they'll fade away, they'll get through a graining phase, they'll come back to you. Maybe they blinked a bit too early with Mark here. So that's the problem. Fernando and Mark are losing so much time here. This is just helping Vettel and Hamilton get an absolute chokehold on this race. Oh, that radio message as well. I know you're doing your best, but it's critical to pass him to Fernando Alonso. Oh, look, Cannavaro's in the Ferrari pit lane. That's hilarious. Big up Fabio. Oh, yeah, and Andrea Stella, who's Fernando Alonso's race engineer for this, he's at McLaren now, isn't he? As trains go, this is a train, and Fernando's in a train, and Vitaly Petrov is the conductor of this train. Oh, here we go, he's gone. Oh, it's like a half send, lost the back end a bit. That felt like a bit of a desperate move from Fernando, that one, which, I mean, you can understand given the context. It's lap 24, just kind of goes for the inside move down the end of the second straight and just a bit wiggly rear end. He kind of locks the rear tyres as Lewis Hamilton comes in now to pit on lap 24. Vettel's still out. So where's Lewis going to come out now? Yeah, so Hamilton's come out behind Kubica, but Kubica hasn't pitted yet. So it's not the end of the world. That's the problem for Mark and Fernando. They're behind cars that have pitted. So they probably will go to the end. Seb getting the G up from his race engineer because he's got to open that. I think obviously Red Bull was seeing how Fernando and Mark are stuck in this train and they can't afford to pit Seb because he knows that if Fernando can't clear Petrov, then Mark's not got a chance. Right, here we go. Seb, 25 out of 55, number of laps done in the pits. Young Christian Horner. He's definitely got better looking with age, I think, Christian Horner. I don't think he would have pulled a Spice Girl back in 2010, I'll just say that. 3.8 second pit stop, that's pretty good. Here we go. So he comes out, that's ahead of Rob Kubica, and there's a Sauber there as well. Kamui thought about it, boy, he just comes out. Red Bull absolutely, tell you what, Red Bull played that perfectly. Seb put in the laps that he needed to. Red Bull got him in when they needed to. They gave him a good pit stop. There's Kamui Kobayashi and Robert Kubica between Sebastian and Lewis. Absolutely nailed that. And Seb absolutely nailed his laps. As Kubica is looking for a move on Kobayashi now. It's only Jenson Button leading the race ahead of Sebastian Vettel. And Button's still not pitted yet. So always a long shot for Lewis for drivers. But constructors, if they can firm up P2 ahead of Ferrari, then that's a good day for McLaren. Okay, lap 29, Jarno Trulli's got damage to his front wing in his back Marta Lotus, but it doesn't look like that's going to bring out any kind of safety car. It's still attached to the car, so I think he'll be alright. It's mad, this is such an iconic race, yet actually watching it is stale, man. We're not seeing any overtakes. Maybe the TV cover, no, we're not seeing any overtakes. I'm looking at the order, even at the back of the grid. There's no one overtaking anyone as Lewis looks up the inside of Kubica but can't get it done. Or carries a bit too much speed, goes wide. Good thing there's runoff. You can tell Fernando's getting desperate. He's pushing here. Such a frustrating race to just so many drivers spending so long sat behind. Ooh, Lewis wants to pit because he doesn't think he's got the tyre performance, but the team don't want him to. Yeah, if Lewis pits, that's any chance gone. The thing is, right now, if Seb retires, Fernando and Webber stuck where they are. You just don't know in F1 because a car can go pop at any time. So if Vettel was to retire, the points that Lewis would gain would potentially put him in the fight. It depends how low Fernando and Webber do finish in the end. On paper, you're everything's there. And there's 3 teams, 4 drivers, potentially win a driver's title. But actually, it's been pretty boring. Credit to Vitaly Petrov. He's not put a foot wrong. With Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champion, right up your chuff. Looking to win a driver's championship as well. So he is as motivated as it gets. Fastest lap from Seb as well, 1:42.9. So he's flying at the front. Fernando just, this is painful to watch. And I think a lot of this is, no DRS. DRS was brought in for a reason in 2011, the year after this. And this is kind of a prime example of why. I would love to know how many overtakes were done all race, proper actual overtakes. So if Fernando can get past Petrov, there's still an opportunity. 36 of 55 now. So there's still time in this race. And the thing is as well, there's scraps going on all over the field, right? So it only takes one shunt, one incident. Someone gets caught up in something. Here we go. Hulkenberg pits now. I think that was Nico. Maybe this gives Fernando a shot now because Petrov was maybe benefiting from a bit of tow from Nico. Lap 38, Seb Vettel fastest lap again. Oh, mad. And as well, Kubica, who hasn't stopped yet, 19 seconds clear of Fernando right now. So that means if Kubica keeps opening that gap, which again, he's got Hamilton behind him, kind of pushing him along, certainly not holding him up. Oh yes, maybe he's thinking about defensive moves, so that might hold him up a little bit. Certainly Kubica's not getting held up as much as Fernando is. Kubica could jump Fernando, and that would be a Herculean L. The Renault boys are doing Sebastian Vettel a humongous favour right now. All right, here we go. just as lap 40 ticks over. Jenson Button into the pits in the McLaren. Where's he going to come out? He'll be behind Lewis and Bobby Kay. Jenson comes out in clear air. Quite a bit behind Kubica and Hamilton, but no one really giving him too many issues. Yeah, there you go. Kubica and Hamilton just fighting. So Vettel now leads from Robert Kubica by 12 seconds, but Kubica's got a pit. So this is looking like a 2-3 for McLaren, which I think is as much as they could realistically have expected, I suppose. Adrian Sutil's still got a pit, his P5 in the Force India. So then when Kubica pits, he's probably going to come out ahead of Alonso. They've just said because Vettel had more fourth places, because they've got the same amount of wins, same amount of P2, same amount of P3s, but Vettel has more fourth places. So Vettel would win the title if Fernando got up to P5. So Fernando needs P4. That's crazy that it comes down to who's got more fourth places. 42 of 55 done. And if Fernando's not made a move already, Petrov's not made a mistake at all. I mean, this is one hell of a drive from Vitaly Petrov. You have to give credit where it's due here, because he's not put a foot wrong. Use the best of your talent. We know how big it is. Lap 43 of 55. That's what's in Fernando Alonso's ear. Hamilton just nailed a bollard with a camera built into it. They don't really have them now, do they? Alonso's got to get past Petrov, Rosberg, and probably Kubica's probably going to come out ahead of him to win this championship. And it's just not going to happen, is it? Oh, here we go. Yellow. What's going on? Oh, the flashing yellow. Someone's broken down. So here we go. This is potentially what Fernando's Tommo Glock breaks down. It's not like he's ever factored into a championship decider before, is he? Renault Lock coming into the pit lane to bring Kubica in. There's no safety car, so it looks like they're just going to leave Tommo's car. I'm not sure where he pulled up exactly, because all the corners in Abu Dhabi look the same, so it's hard to tell exactly where he's pulled up. Kubica comes in on lap 47 of 55, needs a good pit stop. Can the Enstone-based team that is now Alpine deliver it? Yes, they can. And Kubica's going to come out pretty comfortably ahead of Vitaly Petrov. There you go. Alonso is now behind both Renaults. Well, still behind both Renaults. Fastest lap, Lewis Hamilton, 48 of 55 done. 7 to go of honestly one of the most boring F1 races I've watched in a very long time. I've been critical of DRS at times, but actually when you look at this, you're like, wow, it went off style at times, and this is with 4 drivers competing for a world title. Yeah, you got to think, if there's not that contact at the start between Schumacher and Liuzzi, this could have all panned out very differently, because obviously you had drivers like Petrov taking early stops, getting that track position. Maybe it would have still ended up with a Seb win, but maybe not. Maybe a Webber, maybe an Alonso, maybe a Hamilton even. Who knows? It's looking good for Sebi for his first of maybe many, because I'm in 2010, remember. Lewis is closing that gap to Seb, but it's 10 seconds still, so he's not closing it anywhere quick enough. 6 laps to clear 2 Renaults and a Mercedes. It's just not going to happen, is it, Fernando? It's not going to happen, mate. Mark's just sitting there behind Fernando, just like, well, how did it all go wrong? Seb has just driven so phenomenally well. Hasn't put a foot wrong. Absolute quali laps. Lap in, lap out. Like, even if Ferrari had pulled the right strategy, to beat Vettel on this day wasn't going to happen, I don't think. Oh, that's some sad team radio, man. Red Bull saying to Mark, have a go at Fernando, see if you can get past him. I'm sure that's what he was doing. I'm sure that's what Mark has been trying, but he just can't get close. It just feels like a desperate... Because, there's 5 laps to go, and they are, miles behind. No, I'll tell you who's had a really good race, actually. Jaime Alguersuari. Talking about him at the start, keeping up drivers, keeping them behind, keeping Webber behind for a period. P9 in his Toro Rosso. Great little drive from Jaime, but up 8 places as well. 8 places to P9. Jaime Alguersuari. Well done, mate. You deserve a shout out. But look, Kubica are up 6 places, Petrov up 4. Renault have played, and how much of it is luck that's fallen into their laps, how much of it was conscious good strategy? Hard to say. Great race from Renault, this. Great race from Renault. Not that they're fighting for anything, but you've got to fight for yourself at the end of the day. Oh, we've got another broken Lotus. This time, Jarno Trulli's rear wing has just kind of fallen off. With 2 to go, it's just fallen off. And it's chucked debris all over the track, and it's turned his Lotus into some kind of IndyCar looking thing. No safety car. There's huge chunks of rear wing. Yeah, oh god, yeah. There's right plop in the middle of the track. A bit of that Lotus. Ferrari blinked at the end of the day. They made the strategy call to bring in Fernando Alonso And Red Bull didn't bring in Seb. McLaren didn't bring in Lewis. And they didn't bring in Jensen either. And it's going to be a Red Bull P1. It's going to be a McLaren 2-3. And there's going to be a lot of questions around Ferrari after this. Ferrari strategy, always a problem. Sebi going into the final sector. It's going to happen. He's going to do it. Although he's going to have to wait. Obviously, he passed the start-finish line. Wait to hear exactly where Fernando and Mark have finished. Because, of course, that's going to be, mathematically anyway, dominating victory. A thoroughly deserved win. And we'll wait until the rest come over the line. Vettel, P1. Hamilton, P2. Button, P3. They're not jumping up and down yet. They know what happened in Brazil 2008. Facts. Rosberg, P4. Kubica, P5. Petrov, P6. Du bist Weltmeister. What a line that is as well, by the way. Like, come on. That's one of my favourite lines of all time. The Du bist Weltmeister down the radio is such a vibe. Vettel wins. I feel like Red Bull are going to enjoy this one. And as we all well know, this was the start of things to come. I'm going to get some food now because I'm starving. Sebastian Vettel is the world champion. And we'll talk about it in the post-race in 3, 2, 1. Hello again. Yes, we are done. 2010 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix complete. 2010 season finale done. Sebastian Vettel wins. Wasn't looking likely before the race. Put it on pole in qualifying. Dominated. Pulled it home. And you know what? I've got to be honest. The race was really boring. It might have been a worldie of a championship, 4 drivers still in contention to win going into the final race. On paper, that's mad. But this final race in isolation was really dull. I gave it a 3 out of 10. There were so few overtakes. You can see so clearly now when you watch one of these races back in full why DRS was needed and probably still is. I've spoke before about, maybe we should start to phase DRS out, but this was a proper insight and a reminder that let's not go too soon, because sometimes in the past without DRS it has been an absolute snooze fest. But anyway, the race results: Sebastian Vettel wins from Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button, McLaren 2, 3, Fernando Alonso all the way down in P7. He needed a P4 to win the title, so he ended up being quite far off. But, qualified P3, maybe lost position to Jenson Button at the start, but was running P4. It should have been. The car had the pace, but poor strategy in the end. Strategy being Ferrari's undoing, which, isn't unusual for the moment, is it? Now, of course, at the time, was it the right decision? At the time, perhaps did it make sense for them to cover Mark Webber off and pit Fernando? Sure, but should the teams have known that overtaking around here was going to be an absolute nightmare? Was it a mistake to maybe not pit during that safety car super early doors and go for a long stint? There's a few ways Ferrari could have played it. This wasn't necessarily the worst decision to make at the time, but certainly in hindsight it didn't play out for Ferrari in the end, and Seb was able to dominate, stay ahead of Lewis at the start. Lewis kept good pressure on him. He definitely didn't let Seb scamper away at the start of the race anyway, but once Seb got his pit stop in, he was pumping the laps. He won by like 20 seconds or something. It wasn't even that close in the end. A dominating performance to put the cherry on top. I mean, it was quite a boring cherry, but it was a great drive from Seb. You cannot take that away from him at all, and he converted his first of what of course would be 4 World Championships at Red Bull. So now let's look at the winners and losers, specifically from this race. Again, I don't want to look too much at the whole championship broadly. I watched this race in full. I wanted to kind of get a measure of all the drivers throughout the field. Now, like I said, there weren't very many overtakes, not just at the front. There just weren't many overtakes full stop. You had to get it done in the pits pretty much. But there were some standout drives. So my driver W of the weekend, and a driver that I think, ultimately it's always looked back on as being the driver who took it away from Fernando Alonso. I mean, look, at the end of the day, and he's more than entitled to defend that position, I have given it to Vitaly Petrov. He kept Fernando and Mark, by the way. So we had the two protagonists, the drivers who were first and second going into this Grand Prix, behind him for 3/4 of the race. Didn't make a mistake, didn't put a foot wrong, didn't give Alonso a sniff of an opportunity. With that level of pressure right on your chuff for that entire race, Vitaly Petrov, mate, that was unreal. Now, of course, Sebastian Vettel deserves an honourable mention. Like, look at this race in isolation. Put it on pole. Just look comfortable, really, for most of the race. Sure, Hamilton put a bit of pressure on, and credit to Hamilton for that, but Vettel wasn't getting touched. He was clear. It was a perfect driver and team performance. The team made the right calls at the right times, and Seb put in those quali laps and got his head down and went for it when he needed to open the gap up to get him pitted safely. So Seb absolutely smashed it, no question. I've also put in Jaime Al-Jaswari. Ended up P9 in a Toro Rosso ahead of Felipe Massa in the Ferrari as well, which is super impressive. He was the one who was keeping Mark Webber at bay for a bit, which was obviously a little bit awkward because obviously he's Toro Rosso and Mark Webber's in a Red Bull fighting for a title, so I'm surprised he didn't jump out of the way a bit earlier. But yeah, Jaime Al-Jaswari, shout out, and Robert Kubica finished ahead of Vitaly Petrov, delivered everything that Vitaly was doing to keep Fernando at bay, Kubica was doing to keep Hamilton at bay and keep him behind for as long as he did. So Robert also deserves a massive shout out for this race. I thought he put in a stellar performance, and of course both the Renault drivers had great races. The pit stops were clean, so Renault was also my team of the weekend, helping in a big way to deliver a first driver's title to their customer team, being Red Bull. So that's the good stuff. As for driver L's, well look, I've looked at this instant numerous times. Okay, first lap, Nico Rosberg on the inside, Michael Schumacher on the outside. I don't think there's contact. I've looked at as many different angles as I can see, and I think Nico's front wing end plate on the left hand side gets very, very close to Michael's kind of floor, but I don't think there's contact. I think Michael just spins it on his own. If there is contact, then it should really be Rosberg. I mean, Rosberg did have a very good race, to be fair to him, but taking out your teammate isn't great, but I think Michael just spun on his own. So I kind of have to give it to him. I've put in Alonso Webber. I don't think they did too much wrong. I mean, Webber's race was a bit clumsy as well. Like, he grazed the wall early doors before his pit stop, actually. Wasn't able to switch the tyres on like Seb was, so I think he deserves, to be, that deserves to be noted. I don't think Fernando did too much wrong. I mean, he was getting desperate with his moves on Petrov and maybe could have consolidated. Petrov has said afterwards that if Fernando sent a proper balls to the wall, actual dive bomb up the inside, he probably would have got out of the way. I mean, it's easy to say that in hindsight, Vitaly, because you did a great job holding him off. But I've got to put Alonso in there for that. And then Felipe Massa down in P10 behind a Toro Rosso in a Ferrari as well. Just in no man's land in a competitive car. So I think when you look at the ending results, I think Felipe being in there is fair. And then finally, Team L of the weekend. And again, it's hindsight Miggy, but at the end of the day, Ferrari's strategy call was the wrong one in hindsight. And leading the championship going into that race, qualified P3. Poor start, which is on Fernando. Keeps P4, he's fine. And, other teams made it work. Ferrari didn't. And has to kind of be seen as... It's definitely for sure, in part down to them, if not more down to them than Fernando. Lotus in there as well, because their cars were spontaneous. I mean, you had, a front wing kind of fall off, which I don't think was through contact, early doors. And then the rear wing fell off of, Jarno Trulli's car. I think it might have been Trulli's car both times, actually. It seems that the cars weren't put together properly or something, which is very, very sus. And I put Hispania in there because everyone forgets about Hispania, and they were really slow. Really slow. That's my F1 throwback of the 2010 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Let me know if you liked it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. My name's been Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-ra.